do a little bit of what's up. Turn on all the messages so it's not just the top one and all that. Okay. So we are going to be grinding today. That's the profile that I'm going to be doing with the billet that we did last week. What's up, Coulter? So this is the profile I came up with. Now I did change it a little bit from last week. What's up, Justin? So that's the GoMai or GoMai billet that we forged last week. If y'all don't remember, the center core is ladder Damascus. What's up, Duck? So the center core is ladder Damascus, and then it's sandwiched by 15 and 20. Then that's sandwiched by 1084. So that's the makeup of this. I did grind and clean up the edge so that I could actually see and make sure that the center core was straight down the center, and it is. So we're good there. But that is the profile we're going with. What we're going to do in this live stream is, of course, I'm going to get the profile and all that stuff, but then we're going to go ahead and heat treat it. So I figured while we do this live stream, we'll go ahead and I'm going to do some rough grinding on it. Of course, profile it, do some rough bevel grinding, kind of like preheat treat bevels. I don't want to grind it too thin because I've had every issue that I've ever had with GoMai or GoMai has all been in the heat treat. So whenever you go and you quench it, it's pretty much always been one of those things where that's the moment that it screws up. So what we're gonna do this live stream is make you feel bad about how little material my grinder can take off. So this definitely will take it off really fast. And if I wanted to, I could do it real quick and just use the portaband saw that's right there behind my little mini drill press. If I wanted it to be real fast and I didn't want to have to grind everything, I could just remove all the material on the portaband saw and then grind it. But this is not going to take hardly any time to grind out this profile. So we'll do that. But like I said, that's the profile right there. What I changed from the live stream where we actually forged this was I actually forged the tang was almost kind of canted up a little bit. I went ahead and dropped it down and dropped this hole from about right here back. I put a little arch to that whole section right there. So you order the Grizzly. Okay. What's up? So I'm going to show y'all where. So the area where I keep my Grizzly, the one that you're talking about, it's like underneath this stuff right here. That's where the Grizzly's at right now. Right there. So that's where my little Grizzly's at. Now, of course, the grinder I'm going to be using in this is my KMG 2x72. So we got a slightly used 36 grit belt on this, and my KMG is a little bit different. It does have a double decker thing, so I can use a second tooling arm if I want to. But what we're going to be doing, using a 36 grit belt. We'll be using a couple of other belts as we go through this. We've got a Norton 100 grit, and then I've got a nice J-Flex 220 that I'll be using for part of this. Those kind of just hang out on my little sanding buddy right there for hand sanding. What's up, Steve? Yeah, the new one is a 1 horsepower. The one that I have back here is that 3/4 horsepower little tiny thing. Now I do have the upgraded ground and all that other crap on it. I've been slowly watching everybody's videos, because what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is whenever I actually start using that, I'm just gonna do all of the upgrades that everybody has done on YouTube. I'm just gonna like make all of the crap that everybody like OG and my friends, my other friends that have them and use them as their primary grinders and have been modifying them. I'm just gonna do all of those. But I also am in the process of making another grinder. I've got the base for it and the 12 by 12 that's on the other side of this wall. I've got the base for it. So that grinder is going to use, some of y'all have seen these belts, some of y'all haven't seen these belts. Ooh. So the grinder that I'm making right now, it's going to use these. I got a bunch of 36 grit belts. These are normal 2x72 belts. So I'm in the process of making that grinder right now. That can go back off over here again. There we go. But yeah, that's going to be my main material removing grinder that I have for those. So I got a semi-buoy, a forge this fall. Nice. So what we're going to be grinding this out. Now, of course, I have a little light on here. I guess I'm going to take that away a little bit so that y'all can actually see what's going on here. Now, the difference between like this live stream, keep getting knocked off by other channels. Yeah, I can see you, Bob. What's up? Well, let's turn them notifications off, because I get like 426 notifications an hour, it seems like. Upgrading my grinder too. Nice. Yeah, Steve, you can actually see the little double decker on here you were talking about earlier. But my goal for the 2x42 or the little Grizzly is to replace my sharpening setup that I have right now. I've got sharpening belts back here and leather strops and all that on there, and that's what I use primarily for sharpening. I pull the table out, and just so y'all can see exactly what I have going on here, what typically happens is whenever I'm using the table, I'll either leave it where it's at, or if I'm trying to film, I'll pull my little water bucket out and I'll take the whole entire table and put it in better lighting where all the lights are coming together at it. And then I'll pull it out, put the bucket back under it, and if I want to, it's got a long enough cord that I can just roll it out the big doors that are over here. But almost everything in my shop that's really usable has wheels on it. So the anvils, they have wheels, both of them. The forge, it's on wheels. Everything's on wheels. Power hammer, not on wheels. It's got wheels on it. Wheel, but there's no wheels to roll it around. So, anyways, get y'all over here. Now, I'll put it in a way that it gets the best little lighting on it. So, our goal is to go ahead and work on this profile. Now, of course, we're going to be grinding it out. Y'all know that most of the time whenever I make a knife, I'm not really doing this aspect of it very often. Whenever I'm doing a GoMai or a Sanmai, a lot of that's going to be done through stock removal. But most of the knives that I make, those are all going to be, knives that are forged to full profile and all that stuff. They're not knives that I typically go through and grind all the profile out. Most of my knives are forged to the actual profile and have the bevels all done and all that stuff's where it needs to be. But this aspect, we got to grind this out because it's a GoMai billet. By GoMai, I mean it has 5 layers. And if you forge that to profile, you run the risk of that center core, the main core, the part that looks really cool and beautiful, that can wander and look ugly. So, yeah, we're going to grind it. Now, like I said, got a 36 grit belt on here. This grinder pretty much has 1 speed, and that is ridiculously fast. It does have 3 speeds. It's like fast, really fast, and melt your face off. I keep it on melt your face off at pretty much all times. So yeah, using an angle grinder to take the chunks off, saves belts instead of grinding. You want to talk about saving time? I mean, to be fair, I guess I could do that so y'all can actually see it. I don't need to use an angle grinder. I got a freaking portaband saw for a reason. So the easiest thing to do is just rotate the table here. Make my life easy. The easiest thing to do is to bring y'all over here. And then I could clean the profile up on the 2x72. But, portaband saw. This is probably one of the best things in my whole entire shop. Is this. I do use a light. Pretty much all the lights that I don't want to have super bright whenever I turn them on for like filming, I just put a little paper towel over them. It's just a little bit of paper towel and it tones down. You see how bright that is right there? This is just like a little diffuser. It takes that away to where you still have the light, but it's not like a super bright hot spot. But yes, portaband saw, and I've got this on a foot pedal. Instead of having the switch on here, I always take the switch out of these portaband saws, and then I hardwire it together. Some people will just put like a zip tie on there. I don't like that. So I just hardwire it and then plug the plug into a foot pedal, and then I can go through and cut it out. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll cut out the main chunks for this, and then we'll go over to the 2x72 and do that. Now, you know, little note here, this is loud. So if you need to turn your volume down just a smidge, I would suggest that, because this is probably the loudest tool in my whole entire shop. Next to like my vacuum cleaner or the 2x72. But yes, this is not quiet. We're going to go ahead, cut it out. Now, what a lot of people wonder is what bandsaw I have on here or what blade I have. This is a 14 TPI blade, okay? So 14 tooth per inch. That is what's on here. Let's go ahead and cut the main chunk off of this. What I would always suggest is if you're going to be using a portaband saw or something like that, get yourself a little push stick. I use this wrench that I cut off of a blade that I forged. This was the first knife I ever forged was out of the body of this wrench. So if you ever get to a point where you're going to have to push through and get close up to this, you need to make sure you have something that's able to push through so your fingers aren't what's there. Because if you do accidentally go too far, you will slice a finger off with this. It's meant to cut steel. It cuts skin and bone like butter. So just be mindful of that as you're doing it. Don't be an idiot. See, the cool thing is, even with, y'all might be able to actually see it on there. Y'all really can't very much, but I can see that the core is nice and centered. You can kind of see it a little bit on there. It's right there, all the way down the center. So the core is nice and centered throughout that blade there. Really like that. Okay, so let's go ahead, cut the front off real quick. Initial profile there. Picking up the loudness. It's really not that bad on our end. Awesome. That's what I was hoping for. Perfect. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, cut off the little bit of that tang, which I could just grind that. As a matter of fact, I'll probably just grind that. I will cut off this little kind of square right here. What this line right here represents is where the guard's going to sit. I'm not a big fan of really long ricassos, so this is only going to have a little bit of a ricasso. Now, of course, the guard's going to end up curving back, so it's not going to be as close as this. Makes quick work of that, doesn't it? Okay. So now, let's take this, turn that light off. Rotate it back around. Now we're back. I don't think I'm really going to need that light. Well, no, it does help a little bit. So we'll swap the little handy dandy diffuser over. Yay. Like I said, I'm using a 36 grit belt on this. I'm not using like a brand new belt. It is a slightly worn belt. Let me see here. I love that shit. How dare you pick me up? So with this, whenever y'all see my marking lines on these, a lot of the times those are just kind of like suggestions. If I leave a little bit of that line here and there, that's because whenever I start grinding it, I start thinking, oh, I kind of want it to be a little bit longer. I want it to be a little bit narrower, stuff like that. I am going to move my main light that's actually like pointing at me though. There we go. That way whenever I show y'all things, y'all can actually see it. I need to get one of those ring lights that goes around the phone there. Let's see here. I have enough new bandsaw. It is awesome having a porta bandsaw. That now, if it's like a wood cutting bandsaw, it's not really going to do much for you, but an actual metal cutting porta bandsaw is amazing for this. But like I said, whenever I draw the lines, sometimes I'll want to actually just leave the inside of that, like actually remove the whole entire line to get to the profile I want. Sometimes I might leave a little extra here and there. But that's really, as I start grinding it, I'll start thinking, okay, I really want there to be actually a little bit more meat here or less meat there. And I'll kind of play with that as I start doing this. But for right now, let's go ahead and grind this. Y'all are way too zoomed in. And let's figure out exactly what amount of zoom. Boom. There we go. So that y'all can actually see what's going on here. Put the water bucket back underneath it. Man, I've got so much steel that I've taken out of these buckets that I'll show you. Actually, matter of fact, I could probably just bring it in here real quick. If y'all wonder what it looks like whenever you make a whole lot of knives, that's a 5-gallon bucket. And that's how full it is. That's all steel. That's how many knives I've made. That is what, from just cleaning out buckets over the last. That's all steel. My water bucket. So that's how many knives I've made. Let's go ahead, start grinding this. What's up, Juan? Question, how loud is that? Is that too loud? Is that screaming at y'all? Of course, it's going to get a hair louder whenever we start actually grinding, but let me know if it's how loud it is, because it's going to help me with this. You don't produce that much steel dust. You got to grind more swords. Make yourself a bunch of swords. You'll get plenty. Well, plus I also do other projects like making some tool things and things like that. I grind it with that stuff. But yeah, I go through a lot of belts and I go through a lot of steel dust. Let's see here. It's not that bad. Nice to have you here from Brazil. No, but it's pixelated. I'm wondering if I bring y'all a little bit further over here, because the Wi-Fi, we're kind of at like the edge of my Wi-Fi. And let me know, is it less pixelated if I zoom it out just a bit? Is that better? I know sometimes zooming in is like, can kind of be a little, weird with it. This is bad? Is it like really pixelated right now? Still grainy? Okay. The cool thing is, again, I can move this all over the place. So if I get y'all closer to over here, this is what's awesome about the whole live stream thing, is I get to actually have y'all tell me what's going on. Is that better? Slide 1 or slide 2? Lens 1 or lens 2? I don't have glasses. You don't know what that means. Did you say, is that it's worse? As we get closer to the Wi-Fi, it's worse? How is it now? You're getting too much interference. I took it off the Wi-Fi to see if that would be.
Oh no, it's like it's even grainy. It's like it's delayed. So you're seeing everything.
So is it?
Fine.
It's better. I took it off the Wi-Fi, hoping, because sometimes with my phone, it's like, okay, there you go. So just being on 5G is better than the Wi-Fi. Okay, cool. Go actually check it out. Luckily, I have Miss Rivers. So leave it there. Decent. Decent is better than horrible. I'll take decent over horrible. Okay. Let's go ahead. Start grinding the profile. She'll come out here if she thinks that I need to mess with her or anything like that. So let's go ahead and start doing our thing here. So what we're going to do, we're going to start grinding that out. Now, of course, I am going to be grinding the bevels on this too during this, and we're going to be heat treating it. So we're going to be going through doing, I've already done a round of normalizing on this. I'll do one more round of normalizing at a lower temp, and then I'll go ahead and quench it. So you're going to actually get to see it quenched in this, and you should be able to see whenever I quench it, you should be able to see the layers a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. And if I can, before I do the heat treat process, I'll give you all a little test etch. Let's get it. Some of y'all are probably wondering why I'm not wearing a mask or a respirator. And, well, I should be. But I'm going to open up the shop, let it have a real good airflow. I'm not really having to worry too much about this because I'm not grinding off that much. But, you know, it is what it is. right. So that is our rough profile. Right there. Now, let's see here. You're talking about your tongs, which is pretty cool. Plunder Shop. Hey, thanks for that. Really appreciate you joining the member there. So, now, whenever it comes to this right here, one of the things that I'm going to go ahead and do, of course, is clean up all of this. Now, I don't get absolutely perfect on this section right here because I don't want it to be a 90-degree angle. This gets hand filed with the round file. I use a little chainsaw file and a slightly radius the shoulder from the ricasso down into the tang so that it has a nice little radius. You don't want sharp 90-degree angles on pretty much any part of your knife. Those are just weak points right there. Now, some people will wonder why I'm not tapering this tang and making it narrower right here. I go through, now I'll slightly taper that, but I'm not going to get too crazy with it because whenever I'm cutting my slot, I'll just make it nice and even the whole way back, and then I'll burn the last section. So from about here to the back, I'll burn it the rest of the way whenever I'm doing the handle on there. But we're looking good. Everything is nice and straight, which is what you want to start off with before you start grinding everything. But right now, we have our nice heel of the blade, our nice profile. And of course, this is going to end up having a swedge on the top of it because I really want to expose that center core and the different layers on all the way around the main bevels and everything. So this is going to get a nice subtle swedge ground into it, which y'all will see me do on this. And then, of course, down the center. Now, what we need to do is we need to scribe a center line. It's not one of those things that is a must. Is if you're used to grinding knives, you can grind to the center without having to have a scribed center line. Whenever you're able to pay attention to symmetry and things like that, look down the knife and see that everything's even. Because I could easily just start grinding and grind it at a steep angle like this right here, and I could get to a center line. If I'm coming in, I'll use this big old rubber belt eraser that is like stuck onto there. So imagine this is the belt right here. If you come in at a steep angle like this, you can actually just slightly angle it and grind to a very center straight line on both sides of it, and you'll be fine. If you don't have a center scribe, that's one of the easiest ways to get a nice center line on there. But I have a scribe, so it's not that big a deal. I can do that part. What I am going to do, I'm just going to take a little file, and you can use a Scotch-Brite belt if you want to do this. But I'm going to take that slight burr off of it from grinding with that belt. Because what will happen is, whenever you're grinding on like this and the belt's going down this way, it's creating a burr on this back side. I don't want that burr on there catching up my scribe or anything like that. So take that off. That's good. Looking for one of my other files. There it is. my little chainsaw file. That way I can get up into that little area. This is the same chainsaw file that I'll use to actually round over this shoulder right here. I'll go in with this chainsaw file and clean that up, clean this up, and then I'll finish the tang out from that point. But for right now, we need to go ahead and grind in our bevels. It's nice and easy. I use a little plunge line jig whenever I'm grinding this in. I am going to change y'all's point of view now that I can actually move the phone around. So, do you have to use a plunge line jig? No, you don't. It's not necessary. Let's turn this light down just a little bit. There we go. So it's not necessary to use a plunge line jig. You can easily freehand this if you want to. Let's see what y'all are saying here. 2 months. I really appreciate that. Cool. He talked about y'all. Yeah. So now, whenever we go through and do this, I'm going to end up, just so y'all can see here. So where that line is, that's going to be our plunge line. This line that's right up here. What I want is for my ricasso to actually be, like my plunge line to go all the way behind the heel here. So I want it to where that plunge line is back here. And I think this is going to work out real well, which y'all will see it as we start grinding, and I remove this and you can actually see what's going on there. But I'm basically ending this right at the heel. So you see there's a little gap right there, right under here. Sorry for interrupting. Can I ask you a question? It's like 8 pixels. I wonder if I unzoom it and go back on the Wi-Fi. Is that any better? Like how you said, it's like 8 pixels. How is that even possible? The funny thing is, I'm in the middle of a neighborhood, so I should have amazing connection at like all times. What color is it still at 400 degrees Celsius? I don't know what that is in freedom measurements. What is 400 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit? About 900, 750. Okay, so at that point you got a very low, like a cool red. At 750, you got a dull red. So 750 degrees really, or 400 Celsius really isn't going to do much for you. You can forge at that. Some people are forging between 800 and 1200 degrees. So you can forge at that, but if I was going to be working on something, I would want it to be higher than that. So in dull light, that would be you would be able to see 750 degrees in dull light. In bright light, no, it wouldn't be glowing. But 750 in dim light would be a dull red. You would be able to see a Kohler in it. At 750. Trying to blue apart. You should be able to do that at, yeah, easily 400 degrees Celsius. I mean, I would say at like, in Fahrenheit, 450, 500 degrees. Let's see here. Okay, so let's go ahead, mark the center line on this. I'm doing this more for y'all than me, because I want y'all to see what this looks like. All I'm going to do, take a Sharpie, go all the way down the cutting edge, what's going to be the cutting edge. And we need to go on the top where the swedge is going to be. Because we need a center line that goes down the center of where the swedge is going to be and the center of the cutting edge. Now, of course, typically, whenever you're doing this, you wouldn't have the actual guide on there, the plunge line jig on here to do this part. Let's see how thick this is going to leave the edge. I'm cool with that for heat treating this. So we just run our guide down it. It's got a little carbide tip on this little scribe right there. Just want to run that down the edge, both sides. Go down the spine, same way. What that gives us is 2 lines that you want to grind down to. So 2 lines, you would typically bring it all the way down to the heel, but I don't need to do that. So you got 2 lines to grind to on the cutting edge and the swedge. If y'all don't know who Justin Hammond is, it's a Forge and Fire winner. He was at the Dragon Forge with us. He is an amazing smith. Y'all look up. Hey Justin, what's your Instagram? What is your? Is it? I don't know if it was Justin Hammerson or if you just had it as Justin Hammond. But y'all should go check him out on Instagram. Yeah, you can also use a drill bit. I used that for the longest time. I just picked a drill bit that was the same thickness of the steel that I was using, lay this down on a flat surface, take that drill bit, put it on the edge, scribe it down the center, call it done. Nice and easy. Or you can do the method that I was talking about, where you just take it and you angle it pretty steep like this. I guess you can see it better like this. And just actually work yourself down a little bit. Go to the other side, go to the other side, go to the other side. Look at your symmetry. See if you need to move one side over more or the other. And get yourself a nice center edge through practice with that. Hammerson Forge. There you go. But yeah, go check out his stuff. He's awesome. Now what we're going to do for this, we want to go ahead and do a nice 45-degree angle. Doesn't have to be 45 degrees. It can be, you know, just a steeper angle. We just want to knock this hard edge off here before we start grinding these bevels. This is going to go really fast. Grinding the bevels takes almost no time on a knife this size. At least what I feel like is no time. There's times whenever I grind these with a 60 grit belt. Hell, I've grinded them with a 120 grit belt. So it's one of those things that this is not going to take long. We're going to grind that 45 on there. We're going to grind the 45 for the swedge on the top. We're going to go ahead and get into this. So let's start grinding. Something that I want to say, whenever you're typically grinding for a long period of time, you want to get comfortable whenever you're doing this. Like if I'm grinding a sword or whatever, I just want to get locked into place. Let's move you over here so y'all can see me. Locked into place. Get your arms in a nice, comfortable position, about 90 degrees here. Now, for me, I can technically lift and lower this table. It's got a little tool to let it raise and lower, but this is fine where I'm at. Get up to the 2x72, okay? Just look down. You just want to look straight down the actual platen or the belt right there and just start grinding. Get yourself comfortable. Get your hand grip comfortable. Move it around if you need to. I like having a plunge line jig because it works as a heat sink and a good grip. And you just want to be consistent with this, okay? I tend to put my finger underneath the edge here or just slightly off of it right here. And I'll go through, pay attention to my heat as I'm going. This really works for if you're doing post-heat treat. You want your fingers and phalanges on this, unless you're using one of those water systems or whatever. If you're not using a water system, you don't want to use a push stick on a post-heat treated blade or a blade that's already been heat treated. You want to use your fingers. You want to make sure you're not overheating it. So we go in, start grinding. Like I said, I just rest it on the top of my finger right here. Get after it. Like I said, doesn't need to be a 45 degree, just needs to be steep. Get rid of that. Now I'm going to go through, grind down to that other line, and slightly remove it. I don't leave any of the scribe line left. I grind down, erase that scribe line, call it good. Just so y'all can see where we're at right now, you can still kind of sort of see the grind line or the scribed line on there. As of right now, I've just ground down to the scribe line. Now what I'm going to do is remove that scribe line. No more scribe line. We now have our initial little grind on there. I'm going to go ahead and do the swedge at this point. That way that part's good. And then we'll go ahead and start grinding the bevels up here. And you'll see as we start coming up into here, we're going to start developing a plunge line higher up here where that ricasso is. So now I could switch this belt out right now for once I get done with the swedge. I can switch it out with the brand new 36, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to grind just fine with the belt that I have on here right now. Now we have a nice symmetrical swedge. Comes up even on both sides. Right there to right there. Just marking it with my fingernail. Both sides. So yeah. So that's nice and even. Nothing too complicated there. Got the little, as much of it as I want on there for right now. I will end up grinding that thinner as we go up in the belt progression to the 220. So it'll gradually get thinner as we go. I'm going to grind the bevels up to about halfway on the blade before I switch to the next belt. The next belt will easily take it up the rest of the way. I don't want to go too thin on this, so really all I'm trying to do right now, I'm not trying to make the edge any thinner. I'm just trying to bring the bevels up height-wise. So again, going back on here, paying attention to the gap that you see between the cutting edge. So the gap between the cutting edge right now and the belt. That's why you want your light shining like directly down at you, just enough gap away so you can see right here, so that you can actually be paying attention to that gap between there. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to start grinding this line right here, okay? This is what I'm going to start on. Not here, here. So I start working on this transition line right here. I put that on the belt, and that keeps you from accidentally grinding in and putting a little whoopty on your cutting edge. You want to start here when you're grinding, not here. You don't want this to be the part that touches the belt and then gradually work your way down. What you want is you want to start at that transition line and then grind to your cutting edge as you're going through. Again, it saves you time and hassle from accidentally coming in here, you know, something like a bug landing on you or something messing with you, and you accidentally dig it into your edge, your cutting edge, and you make it too thin or something like that. There's a lot of things that mess up. Use the meat that you have to make your life easy. One of the other things I would suggest, actually, start with your non-dominant hand. So my left is my non-dominant. I'm going to actually start grinding on it, and then I'll switch to my dominant hand to make the other side match what I did on the non-dominant side. It just makes it to where, you know, you can always make things match the weaker side of your grinding. So I'll start non-dominant just like I did whenever I was grinding in the initial bevel. So I'll start going through, grinding that non-dominant, get to where I need it to be, and then I can go into my dominant hand and make it match. And one of the things you don't want to be fooled by is, see this little guy right here? That's a hammer strike right there. So I don't need to do anything right here to fix that. I just got to keep grinding nice and even as I go. If you look at the actual bevels themselves as I'm going in, they're nice and even. Don't get thrown off by a little hammer forge texture. So, as I'm grinding this, you'll notice what I'm doing here. You might not notice it that much, but as I pull across the belt, I'm not just going straight across the whole entire time. Whenever I get to that tip, I'm pulling my left hand, or the hand that's holding the tang, I'm pulling that to me. So I'm going across and I'm rounding it out. Going across, rounding it out. Go across, rounded it out. That way, whenever we're going up there, we're pulling that away. I'm not going this far. It's just subtly working its way out towards me. And that's what gives you the nice, even thickness of bevel towards that tip there. That's what's doing that for you. And that is a set of really clean pre-bevels. That's what you're looking for as you go through the progressions. You don't want to have a bunch of waves in this at this point as you go down. Those lines, these striations that go through here should be nice and even. The same direction all the way down as you go. It should be even. They shouldn't be kind of, off in different directions or anything like that. All those lines should be in the same direction. Everything should be nice and uniform as you go through. The bevels should look nice and straight and even as you're going through them and looking at them. So that is what you're looking for whenever you start going through and doing that grind. Now, of course, this is just 36 grit. We, of course, will go up in grits. My next goal, like I said, I was only going to come up to about halfway on this. And I'm not getting fooled again by this little hammer strike right here. All of that will go away once I grind up to about right here. There will be no more of this. I'm not going to try and go through and grind this area and even it out. Don't get fooled by that. We're still in a real low point with this transition line. Okay? So don't worry about any of that. Just keep grinding. I can easily see that I've got a slight hammer mark there. You can see the actual sheen transition. I don't know how gritty or grainy this is, but it's shinier here and duller in this little spot right here. That's how I know that there is a little shallow hammer mark. Can you make a tungsten knife? I mean, you can. I wouldn't suggest it. You're going to go through a lot of abrasives making a tungsten knife. A lot of abrasives. Okay, so as we go through and do this, we're going to do the next side. Go ahead and grind that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to back y'all off a little bit so that y'all can see my full body as I'm going through and grinding this. I don't know if that's going to help y'all at all, being able to see what I'm doing as I do this, but I'm going to try and make sure I have a good angle for y'all. So yes, that's good enough. I mean, I know we're on the opposite side at this point, but I want y'all to see what I'm doing. And maybe it might be better if I put y'all, we'll just see how this goes. Y'all tell me if this angle kind of makes it a little better. so that y'all can see as I'm pulling this area here. I want y'all to be able to see what my body's doing, how I'm looking down the belt, how I'm moving my body, all of that, so that y'all can kind of see if there's something that y'all need to change within how you're grinding or anything like that, and go from there. So we'll see how this goes. So there you go. Again, You want all your striations as you go through to be even all the way down. Bevels be nice and crisp. Even at this part of the grinding process, that's what you want. And now you can see that transition between the bevels and the swedge. Gotta love that. It's all in the hips. There you go. Struggle with keeping my elbows and arms in the right position. Okay. Golf balls under your. That's true. Being able to pull that in there as you go. And that's literally all it is. Keeping everything nice and even as you go. Y'all will see sometimes I will do this right here. But you'll see whenever I'm going through and I'm doing that, it's small movements that I'm doing. And I'm using my whole entire body, and my legs and my feet, they're staying in the same position. I'm just moving a little bit here and rocking it as we go through. Sometimes it's a little bit harder. Let's say I'm trying to grind a sword or something like that. So I want to go through and I want to grind a sword. All right. That's one that we forged on a live stream. Yeah. Anyways, say I want to grind a sword. This is a little bit harder because it's a lot longer. You know what I mean? A lot longer. So there's times whenever I have to start at a point, use my elbows, okay? Use my elbows and then my hips. Elbows, then hips. Elbows, then hips. But I'm still working on keeping my elbows in the same position, locked in, and I'm rotating my elbows, then my hips. Your goal is just work on that muscle memory. Work on that muscle memory. And you'll get it good. All right, so now we can go ahead and transition from our 36 grit belt. I'm going to go up to, let's do this 120 Norton. So straight from a 36 to a 120 grit. It's a brand new belt, Norton. Doesn't really have many of the actual labels on there, but Norton is the brand of this. Make sure we're going the right direction. Doesn't really matter too much about the direction, but put that on here. Gotta love brand new belts. Only thing I don't like about this belt is it seems like it was cut a little wonky. I don't like that. That'll get evened up as I start grinding, but never really like them whenever they don't look super. Everybody's got to have a shop scalpel. That's my most used utility knife in the whole entire shop. Just a little, Farrier's rasp. Out of all my little shop knives, that's like the number one little guy that I use. All right. So now we're going to go ahead. We're going to start grinding on the next belt. I'm doing the same exact thing that I did on the previous belt. I'm going to be starting closer to this transition line than the edge. I'm going to start grinding more, focusing on this transition line right here and work my way down to the edge again. I'm not really going to do that very much as I get up in the higher grits. Whenever you're doing the higher grits, you're not really going to screw many things up. They don't eat material as fast. But I'm going to go through those little hairs on the edge of the belt. What marks in her? Yes, they will. So you want to cut those off as you go through. What I was talking about was where you're going to have any slight whoopties where the belt the edge of the belt kind of dives in or something like that. It was subtle, but yeah, if you ever have any of those little hairs or something that looks like it's going to pop off on the side, just cut it off. Don't grind your material with that on there. For one, it can lead to a tear in the belt that's going to end up smacking you in the face. And a 100 grit belt hitting you in the face at like 4,000 RPMs, it's going to hurt and it's going to leave a mark. Thoughts on a K-bar? Looking for a hunting knife? K-bars are awesome. Now they do make specific knives that are better for hunting than K-bars, but K-bars are good. Yep. So now we're going to go ahead and start grinding this. Like I said, I'm going to be working a little bit higher on this. As we start grinding this, we're going to be working on that transition between the bevels and the flats. Start grinding there, work our way down to our cutting edge. Get a nicer finish on this. Whenever I get this section done, I'm going to hit this section. So 100 grit, we're going to go to the 220, do a round of that. Then we're going to do a Scotch-Brite, and then we can go ahead and take the plunge line jig off, clean up the swedge a little bit, and then we'll start normalizing. There you go. So that's as far up as I'm going to go on the bevels for a preheat treat. Now, I will go up higher than that post-heat treat, but we're going to end up doing one more belt. We're not really going to go up any higher in the bevels for the next belt on there. Where's your PPE? Not here for this. If I was grinding like 5 knives or more, I'd be using that right now. But I've got big door open right here. We got a nice breeze coming through. I'm good for right now. Almost all of this is falling in here. My big thing is you don't want to be grinding like a whole bunch of blades and not having a respirator on or anything like that. My respirator is, or my mask that I wear during this is right there. So, yeah. But yes, I agree. You need to have PPE. So, that was one of the things that I said earlier. But that's as high as I'm going to go up on the bevels for right now on there. Now, I need to go ahead and match that to the other side. He likes huffing Damascus dust. Yes, the center core of this is Damascus. So the center core is a lighter Damascus. And it's a GoMai billet, so the outer layers are 1084, then there's 15N20, and then the center core is lighter Damascus. Now, we're good here for that side. I need to go ahead, match the other side to this one, and then we can go ahead and hit it with the 220, and then the Scotch-Brite. Now, I will tell you this, it's not super necessary for me to go through the belt progression like I'm doing right now, because I am going to end up grinding it more post heat treat, but I'm trying to show y'all the belt progression during this so that it makes it easier on y'all. And me personally, why not go ahead and bring it up a little bit, because whenever I get done with the heat treat, I'm only going to bring it up a very, very low amount. Like after the heat treat, it's going to go, the bevels are going to go up about that much higher. You do turn the policy, say PPE required. If you have a man bun, it's probably in the rules. How many layers of Damascus? So this ladder is 80 layers. So 80 layers on that puppy. Yeah, so Steve Jennings. So one of my favorite blades that Steve Jennings, and if y'all don't know who Steve is, Steve Jennings, he's the one that made my power hammer. So this wonderful, beautiful piece of machinery right here. Steve is the one that made that and then delivered this thing in the back of his truck from Kansas. We had to take a fence panel down in order to get that thing in here. He said 84 layers technically. It is probably closer to 84 layers. How heavy of a acid bath do I do? On my normal Damascus blades, I tend to go heavier on the etching. So I will do, okay, for one, before I say that, my favorite knife that Steve has made, he did a basket weave mosaic pattern and then feathered it. So he did a feather Damascus billet where before he feathered, he did it. So it was a basket weave feather pattern Damascus. You can see it on his Instagram. It is wicked. It is absolutely awesome. And he did clear handle scales on it, so you can see the pattern all the way through the whole entire full blade, all the way through the tang and everything. It's amazing. So yeah, you should definitely go check that out. So now, when it comes to the acid bath, whenever I do that, I do longer ones. So I'll do like 20-minute sessions of etching in that. And I like to etch my Damascus a little bit deeper. And that way the darks that are left afterwards, they stay longer. But I'll etch it a little bit deeper on a lot of the blades that I do. But let's say like this right here. This wasn't like a super long bath, but you could see the pattern on it real well. But that's not like a super long etch. This is after heat treat, all of that, just the little etch on it with No coffee or anything like that yet. That's pure ferric chloride with a 50-50 distilled water to ferric mixture. Little kitchen knife that I'm working on for a friend. It does look like a topographical map, and that's one of the things that I love about it most. I've got a integral bolster Damascus chef knife that I did, and it really looks like a topographical map with how the pattern is on it. It looks cool. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's get this other side ground so we can go on to the next steps. Again, same process, working it out, making everything look good, keeping your body nice and even as you go. Let's grind. So one of the things that I'm going to do here, because of that little hammer mark right there, I'm going to primarily work from the front to here, and I'm going to feather that back until I get that where I want it to be, and then work into this little area back here. So I'm going to primarily be working in here and work my way back into the plunge. Instead of starting at the plunge and working forward, I'm going to start about right here, work out, work back in. Small thing to remember, if you do what I'm about to do, you have to be really mindful about what your body's doing and that you're going to that belt nice and even. Because when you start in the center, you start in the center of the blade right here, you really risk screwing something up. So you need to be confident in what you're doing in order to start here and start feathering your way back. Very, very light pressure. If you're going to start here, you need to be coming in at this belt with almost no pressure and then feathering your way in and then getting more pressure into it, okay? It's real easy to screw a blade up by doing what I'm doing right now if you're not confident and you're not paying attention to what you're doing. while I'm doing this, I'm not super worried about what's happening in this section right here. Paying attention to what's happening here and up in here, because once I get through these belt progressions and get past that little hammer mark, everything's going to even itself out up here. So what I'm making sure of is that my bevels are nice and clean, that I don't have any dips anywhere as I go through, and that the start and the end of this is in the right area. So we're pretty good where we're at right now. I just need to do a little bit more grinding and we should be good. The light was messing me up with my coming into my heel there. But again, that's what we're looking for when we're looking at our bevels. Nice and clean. You see this light line right here, the reflection of that light. As you go through the blade, there's no like ripples or anything in there as we go through. That's what you're looking for whenever you grind these. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in with the calipers. I'm going to make sure the beginning and end of my bevels are nice and symmetrical. And they are spot on. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch to the 220. Go ahead, grind with it. This is a 220 that I've used a couple of times already. Not a brand new 220. This is a Hermes J-Flex belt. These belts are so nice. So my belts that I'm using right here, the Norton and this Hermes one, those came from Texas Farrier Supply. They're one of the channel sponsors. If y'all didn't know that, Texas Farrier Supply has been a sponsor for about 2 months now. I've got a few things from them, tongs. They let me use their forges and anvils whenever I go and do my demos at shows. They actually let me just stop there, pick up what I need, go do my thing, bring it back, call it good. So absolutely amazing place to be sponsored by. Get my belts from them. I get some of my hammers and tools and things like that through them. Just a blessing to have them on board with the channel. Love Texas Farrier Supply. They have hammers, tongs. They literally have everything that you're going to need to make knives. So if you haven't thought about it, go check out Texas Farrier Supply. They're amazing. Now, we're going to go through. do our 220 grit. This is another one of those times that we really want to focus on being nice and even as you do this. It's not a super heavy grip, but you can still screw things up if you're not paying attention. Never forged, but have repurposed and reshaped a few knives. That's how I started with mine. So I started reprofiling blades. Been a knife collector for a very long time. Started by reprofiling knives. Did my first couple of reprofiles and I was like, okay, cool, this is pretty cool. And then I rehandled a couple of knives. Those turned out real nice. And then I was talking to a guy that kind of got me into this. His name is Jeff Peters. If you're not following him, it's Old Wolf Forge on Facebook. Jeff Peters, absolutely awesome dude. He won his Forged in Fire episode. They made the Messer sword. He's awesome, great guy. He's the one that kind of pushed me to go ahead and start making knives. And I made my first file knife. That worked out real well. Then it just kind of progressed from there. So let's go ahead, work on this 220 grit belt, clean it up a little bit more, then we'll switch to a Scotch-Brite. Go from there. You can see how clean that's already starting to get this. But I will tell you this, during this particular part right here, this is where you can screw yourself up and go into a never-ending loop of screw-ups. So with a belt like this at 220, it still removes enough material that you can give yourself a second bevel, meaning if you come in too hot at an angle this way or this way, and you give yourself a second bevel, which creates a little wavy line going down your bevels there. And if you try and sit there with this same grip belt to correct that, you could sit there and create multiple facets on the actual bevels. Trying to get rid of it with this 220 grit belt is going to be a pain in the butt. You're going to be grinding for a while. If you get one of those facets and you can't immediately get it out, go back to the belt before it and do that belt, clean up that facet, start grinding again with this belt. Don't try and correct it with this belt. It'll take too long. You're going to have that happen if you're not paying attention and you come in too hot either way, you can get that extra facet on there. So just remember, it's always fine to go back to another belt, clean it up, go back into your higher grip belt. At this point in the grinding process, whenever we're going and we're touching this to the belt, you shouldn't see any shadow between your cutting edge and the belt. Where we were going through, and on the previous belts, we were kind of starting on that transition line between what is currently the flats and the bevels. On this one, we're going in super gentle, and we are making sure that we don't see any shadow between that cutting edge and our belt. It needs to be nice and even as we go all the way down that, and that's what's going to keep you from getting those extra facets in there, and we keep it nice and smooth and even. Okay. Let's see here. What are y'all saying? Yeah, there you go. Facets is when you accidentally grind the wrong angle and get a secondary bevel from the first one. Yes. So yeah, it's one of those things that people will chase that and battle it with the same grit belt trying to fix it. And if you're not super confident in what you're doing to be able to know what to do in the moment to correct that facet with that same belt, the easiest thing to do is go down one belt progression and go to the previous belt, clean it up, then go back into your higher grit. It's super easy to correct as long as you're willing to go back and just fix it. It's not a big deal. It happens. It happens to a lot of us knife makers, especially when we're getting used to using a grinder and things like that. It's okay. Just remember, you can always go back a step, fix it, and then keep going forward, okay? So now we've got that bevel nice and clean with the 220. We're going to switch over, do the other side, my non-dominant hand, and work it. At this point, I don't have the belt overlapped over the platen or hanging off the edge of the platen. I have it running pretty much directly even with the edge of the platen. The platen is this piece of steel, the backer for the belt right here, in between these two wheels. That piece of steel that I'm grinding against, if you're wondering what a platen is. Happy with that. One of the things that you'll start seeing, and I'll start messing with your eyes a little bit, but you can actually see, this is not a grinding line here. You can actually see the layers of the steel starting to show up. That's pretty cool. That's looking good. Now we can go ahead and switch to the Scotch-Brite belt. We're going to be using the blue Scotch-Brite belt, okay? What's up?
Somebody asked for you whenever you're showing the blade and you're doing all that stuff for it to be higher because their comments, they're on a cell phone or something like that, and the comments are hiding.
Thank you for that. I didn't. Got to go higher as the. There you go. I'll give you a test edge. Let me hit this Scotch-Brite real quick and clean up that swedge, and then we'll definitely do a test edge. What?
Sorry, I was animating your terms.
Yeah, she's over here. She's using jazz hands to explain what I'm doing. Okay, so we'll hit this Scotch-Brite, and we'll clean up that, and then yeah, we'll go ahead and do a test etch. Does it weaken a blade if you expose a layer during the grinding? Nope. At this point, this is one chunk of steel. It's got layers in it, but it's fully forge welded. So it is one piece of steel. So no, you're good. Look at how clean those are. There you go. Nice and whew, all built work right there. That's all just belts. That is what you're looking for as you're going through your belt progressions. Other side. Nice and clean on that other side. So when it comes to the belts that I use, again, Scotch-Brite belt also came from Texas Farrier Supply. I tend to use a few different belts. These little red belts that you see, these are by Summit. There you go. Or what are they? No. Sunmite is who makes them. So these are like 120s that I use. These are my like cheaper belts. Of course, anytime you see an orange or a purple belt, just know that that was an expensive purchase. So my J-Flexes, these are Hermes ceramic J-Flex. And then the orange belts are by Norton. And then my purple belts, let's see, are Stark, S-T-A-R-C-K-E for the higher grit ones. And then these, I'm pretty sure I got these from Phoenix Abrasives. The purples that they have, this is their belt that they have. It's their purple ceramic hardcore 36 grit belt. But my cheaper ones are by Sunmite. The more expensive ones are going to be your Nortons and things like that for those. Now, what we got to do, take this plunge line jig off and clean up the swedge, and we'll do a test etch.
Before you test etch, let me go get my phone so that I can record it.
Okay. Y'all ready to see this plunge line area? So, bring the light back up here. That's where our plunge line goes down into that heel right there. That is going to be a beautiful profile. So let me clean up that swedge just a little bit, and then we'll go through and do a test etch. You're good for a second, Nisha. I got to run this 110 and the 220 and the Scotch-Brite, which this is only going to take a few seconds. So now whenever I go through and do the swedge, at this point, all I got to do, come in, tip down, and just clean up the swedge, both sides, make it nice and even, and we're good. Yes, it's just over 3/16 of an inch. Just over 3/16. Onto a 220. Okay, so whenever you do the Scotch-Brite, at this point right here, it's all about having a new Scotch-Brite, not an old one. If you have an old one, it'll wrap around the transitions. You want a new one, and you want light pressure, because if not, you'll start rounding these really sharp transition lines right here. You don't want to round those. You want those to stay nice and clean. What's up, y'all, too? All right. Light. Got my little fingerprints off there. Nice and even. Everything's still nice and sharp all the way down to that tip. Is it 100% necessary to be at this point right now? No, because I am going to still work on some of it after the heat treat, but why not have it look like that before the heat treat and show y'all what it could look like if I stopped right there. So now, let's go ahead and do a test etch. I'm going to clean the blade a little bit before we do this. I'm gonna do a quick etch on it, and then I'll bring it over there to y'all. And of course, I haven't cleaned up the spine or anything really. Like, I haven't done any work on the spine. You might have just got super grainy because as soon as you get to here, it's like grainy. So you might need to go right back on over to there, and they can hang out for a second. I don't know what it is, but as soon as you transition from like there to here, it is horrible signal. So my etch tank, one of my 2 etch tanks, is just right here on this little column. The reason why I have 2 is one of them I use for copper builds like GoMais and things like that. If you use copper in one of your etch tanks, from that point forward, it'll want to put copper on the blades that you're working on. So once you do copper on one, just let it be a copper etch tank from that point. So I've got one that has copper in it and one that does not. Oh, that's gonna look good. Hold on 1 second.
Nice.
Okay, so let y'all see this. There we go. You can see how much thinner I need to grind it, which of course I will be. But let's see if I can get a good angle on here. So there is your outer layer. And you can see up in here, this is where the Damascus core is. So whenever I finish grinding this after the heat treat, you'll be able to see all of that. Like you can see the Damascus layers starting to peek out as you go through there. And you can see how even the layers are from this side to this side. Let's see if it'll even show that very well. I need to go thinner on it. Like you can see the line transition as you go in there.
Can I put it down now?
Let go, Toby. Thank you. You can see that transition line right there at the end of my finger. And it works its way all the way around there. I didn't go 0 on the clip because, again, I'm going to be going through and grinding it the rest of the way. So the reason why I didn't go through and grind it any deeper than what it is right now is because the moment that it's going to screw up on this blade, if it's going to screw up, is the quench. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to quench this, and then I'll go through and final grind it. And whenever I final grind it, I'm going to go to almost a 0 edge on this, and there'll be a 0 edge on the clip, and there'll be close to a 0 edge on the actual bevels. So the bevels are going to come up to about right here. We're going to go up about another 1/4 of an inch height. I mean, you can see where I drew this original line. There's only going to be a subtle brute to forge finish at the very top. I'm bringing these bevels up quite a bit. I'm going to 0 out the edge and kind of apple seed it a little bit. So you'll see that center core all the way down that cutting edge and the nice transitions as we go. But I wanted to leave everything slightly thick so that whenever I quench it, we don't risk anything blowing apart, popping apart, or anything like that. So that's where we want to be nice and gentle with it. Can you see some of the copper knives? I've got them on my Instagram and I've got them on the YouTube channel. I did a crazy GoMai billet back in the days that had a lot of copper. It was just layers of copper in 15 and 20, and it looks really cool. It is one of my favorite knives I've ever made, but that's on there as well. What 2x72 would I recommend? Let me clean this blade off and I'll tell you. You don't want to leave acid on one of these blades because it'll sit there and just continue to etch itself or get a nice layer of rust once it meets the air. And all I'm doing to neutralize it is I'm just using WD-40 Windex to neutralize the blade. Yeah, look at how much you can see it now. Hold on. No, you're good, Toby.
Okay.
I got my light professional, Mr. Tobias, on here. There you go.
Come on, Dad.
At least now you can actually, there you go. Y'all can see that line working its way down there. That's going to be so nice, especially whenever we have that nice ladder pattern core showing on the edge. It's going to be such a good profile on there. So now what I need to do is go ahead and normalize this blade. I've already done a round of normalization on here, so I don't need to do a bunch of rounds of it. I did a kneeling phase, which was bringing it up to 1600 and leaving it in the forge. So I did that phase where I brought it up 1600, left it in the forge to do its thing, cooled down slowly. That was my annealing phase. And then I did a tempering cycle or a thermal cycle where I brought it up to 1600 again and let it cool outside the forge. And then I brought it up to about 1500, let it cool outside the forge. The one that we're going to do right now is bring it up to about 1400 and then let it cool outside the forge. And then we'll bring it up to about 1500 degrees and quench it. So what we need to do now, light up the forge, let this start doing its thing. Put our little block off bricks on the side.
Oh, that was unexpected.
Right?
Hold on, wait, those are bricks?
Yeah, they're called fire bricks.
Okay, nice.
So we'll let that heat up a little bit. By heat up a little bit, I mean fully heat up to the temperature that we need it to be. See you later, Steve. So with this phase, what we need to do, let the forge warm up. Kind of my random chairs everywhere. You want to sit down?
Yeah, sure. Only needed when the light is gonna be.
That's my 7-year or 8-year-old now, right?
Yep.
Tobias.
Come on, stop saying my real name.
And we're going to go ahead. We're going to let this come up to the full blown about 1500 degrees, and then I'm going to let it warm the blade up to 1400. Pull it out, set it on the fire brick up here. What I typically do is I stand the blade up vertical. I don't lay it on its side because I don't want it to warp to one side as it's cooling. So I'll stand it up vertical, let it cool down close to room temperature, and then we'll go ahead and while that's cooling down, we're going to heat up our oil that I have right here. Out here with the government name. We're going to heat up the oil that's in this top container. I've got two things. This is more for swords. So I've got oil all the way down and the bigger ammo can, and then I've got oil in a smaller can for smaller blades like this. But if I need to quench swords or something long, I do it in the big tank, the small tank for these, so it doesn't take as long to heat up. So I'm gonna heat that up to 120 degrees. I'm gonna heat it up to 120 degrees with that torch right there. Get it nice and warm, and then we'll be able to quench. So that's the goal for right now. What kind of oil am I using? This is AAA. So I've got Parks 50 and another one of these right here. And then I've got this whole entire thing right here. The big one is actually peanut oil. So this one is peanut oil right here. That's AAA. How often do I swap out the oils? Once every year and a half. By the way, what's up, Jason? I don't know if I said that earlier. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I like peanut oil. So peanut oil is my preferred quench oil for 5160. I've done a lot of tests with it. I've got one of my swords that I use to absolutely do everything in my yard. So this Wakizashi right here is the most abused blade that I have in my shop. Now you might think that that's surface rust or anything like that, but that's leftover bark right there.
Oh, jeez.
From chopping on trees and sap and stuff like that. But this Wakizashi I made a few years back, and it's got a 0 edge on it. 0 edge, no secondary bevel. I have only ever stropped it. I've never resharpened it or done anything like that with it. I've only ever stropped it, and it is still shaving sharp. And I cut branches off my tree with it. This was a Willie's Jeep leaf spring. And to this day, gotta be careful because it will cut me if I go too crazy. But to this day, it still shaves. And you see how brutalized this thing is. You could tell if I stropped that, it would have a nice shiny edge on it. He thought the leg cuts extra. Yeah, the leg shots right there. Woo! Yeah.
Sounds like I need to hold this.
I'll let you know if you do, Bubba.
Okay.
But yeah, this is one of the most abused blades that I have, and the fact that it is still shaving sharp, that just goes to show that this is the reason why my 5160 process has stayed the same. This was the fruit of all my efforts of getting my heat treat process down for 5160, because again, I've used and abused this, and it doesn't have a real big secondary bevel or anything like that. Used and abused it, zero edge, sharpened all the way down, and still shaves. What's up, Bubba?
So basically how that works is that propane is a flammable gas.
Yes.
Okay.
And then it's pulling air, so you have the gas is shooting out here, and from it shooting out, it pulls air through this burner.
I just thought propane was the flame.
Nope, that's part of the fuel. So the oxygen and the propane makes that big old flame. So what I can do, if I adjust this little guy right here, this choke is what we call that. If I adjust this, it changes the flame. If I adjust this knob, so this increases or decreases the air, this increases or decreases the fuel, the propane. So those two things was what adjusts the actual flame.
Is this like a...
Hank Machado's fat being good as shaved leg hair. Will it shave that fine bicep hair? You better believe it will. Gotta have that bicep. But yeah, it does. Wilizaki Sarasashi is buck 110. I think it's called the hardest steel you can get because I hear it from my grandpa. There we go. Unrounded. You're talking about is the brand buck? So like a buck knife, an old school buck knife. All right, let's go ahead. Put this in the forge. Let it come up to temp.
No light.
Right here. Yeah. So where a little bit of the etching got up underneath the forge scale, you can hear it popping.
What's pop?
Yes, explain fluid dynamics to the child. He's the one that would understand it.
I basically but I'm basically learning a
Yep.
lot of stuff.
Yep.
Mid-life.
Yeah. If any of my kids are gonna do stuff that I do, it would be that kid. Him and Arlen, my daughter, she's super interested in stuff that I do, but he really likes this. And so on Christmas Day, I actually had them out here, and we forged rune pendants. So we did the pendants that we do at the Dragon Forge experience. I I had the pieces of steel and all that, and we went through and we forged the actual pendants, did the texturing, did the runes that they picked out and all of that, which was really cool. I went through and forged a chisel to be able to actually do the runes. So I forged that one. Thank you. That's the, let's take a little bit of the light away. Now, I forged this and actually forged the wedge and everything like that to be able to do that. I didn't have a fan chisel like this to be able to do the runes. One of the other things that I did was my drift to do my rings for the ring knives. I forged that as well. Forged the full wedge or the actual taper and everything. It was all forged, and then I finish ground it, and then I got that little idea to do that little, like, forge the lip, because it tends to flare out just a little bit on the end. Duck actually told me to forge that back down, and it creates a nice little cutting edge. So whenever you go through and you punch that through, it's worked out super well. And you see, I've punched through a lot of stuff, and even though you can see these rings, those rings are from the temperature, it's still perfectly smooth. But that has worked out super well to be able to drift out everything that I've been doing. I start off with the pressure hole. Well, technically I start off on top of the anvil, start setting it, go to the pressure hole, punch it through the rest of the way, and then I switch to my hardy hole and work through there. And I've done, okay, before we get off track, let's go ahead, pull that out. Got a nice temperature on it. Stand it up vertical. Let that cool down. So we're good on the temperature for that. Now, when it comes to that big old Sharpie.
I want to see like how big the actual like drawing part is.
Open it, you can. So I have these two knives that I'm working on right here. Both of those were started with that punch and drift, and then worked on the horn. So the drift is big enough to be, if you go that far back on that horn, it's the same diameter as that section of the horn of this anvil. So you drift it out enough to where I can easily get this on there and start drawing this out, start flaring out this hole by working it on there. But yes, this is a husband and wife set right here. So you can see that one is smaller, slightly smaller than the other, but same profile, everything like that. Little matching pair. So that it actually fits their hands real well. That's going to be absolutely awesome set. But yeah, that's my after Christmas order that I have going on right now. All right, so now we're going to go ahead, start heating this oil. If you're going to be heating your oil, make sure that you're heating it with the lid off of it. I'm going to pull y'all actually over here and zoom y'all in just a little bit.
I always wondered what was in that.
There we go.
Seriously,
Got this cool little vintage chest here too. I'm going to line all the drawers in this. I'm going to put all my handle material. Handle and pin stock is all going in this set of drawers here. So I'm going to have different types of woods, everything from blocks going up to scales, going up to man-made stuff like micartas and all that, and then pin stock all in the top drawer.
Dad, when would you ever need this big of a Sharpie?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that do that quenching with like a railroad spike or something like that.
No.
But a torch heats it up pretty quick, so I don't really have to worry too much about that. What were you saying?
When would you ever need a flippin' Sharpie this big?
I use that to actually, whenever I go through and I mark the edges of them and
You
scribe
use
it like
this?
that. Yeah, because it's really wide, and I just go whoop. That's the only time I use that ridiculous Sharpie.
You gotta get more of these, but in different colors.
I've got the other ones in different colors.
Where were they?
Look at them. You can see all the. No, I don't have the bit. Look, those that are in the
Oh, yeah.
jar right there. So let's see what temperature we're at right now. We're at about 85 degrees. It doesn't take hardly any time whatsoever for me to warm up this with this. Don't mess with that too much, brother. That little laser thermometer works for the most part. What you got to be mindful of if you're going to use laser thermometers like this to check the heat on stuff, you need to be mindful of the fact that if you're putting this close to your forge, that end piece will heat up and it will throw off the temperature. It can heat up all the way up to 100, 200 degrees and it will throw off. It'll make you think that your blade is 1800 when it's really 1600.
So is that metal or copper?
What?
Is that metal or copper?
This is metal,
It's,
and this is an ammo can. I used to store ammo in it. Ammunition, bullets.
it's waterproof.
It's waterproof from the inside out, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
That's why it's got a seal all the way around there. I've got my other ones in the other shop.
So how did you get your hands on this if it's meant for like the army?
Hold on. Let's just slightly do this.
But I think
I kind of want to move it over to where y'all are at, but it's like, here, do that. I'm going to pull it over to where y'all are at.
what? It's
This is not light, but
okay,
this
what's
way
in
y'all can
that?
actually
What's in that?
see whenever I quench this.
Is oil also in that?
Yes,
Come on!
a lot of it.
Oh wow. Why do you need that much oil? Oh! Because you're a blacksmith.
Oh, because you're a blacksmith.
Yep. A blacksmith, brother!
Yeah, it didn't really heat up the handle that much. Let's see here. Where do you buy handle material from? So I get my handle material from a few different places. Skills by Sarah for some of them. Get it from Bigger Material Supply. Get it from Terry Dunn, Oleg Bashkovic. There's a few people that I get them from. You need to be careful with this because I'll be heating this up. Your mom said, do not move, do not pass go, do not collect $200. The only reason why I don't do that whole railroad spike thing in the oil is because I don't like having a big oily railroad spike sitting around or having to fetch it out of the quench bucket. I do have a rod, this piece of rebar right here. I use that for the bigger bucket. I do heat that up and put that in there, and then I'll use it to stir as well and agitate the oil. But that's the only thing that I really use for that, because it's long enough to stick out of the oil and it's easy to retrieve. Having to drop a railroad spike down in there and then get it back out, that's a pain in the butt.
So how much is the bottom?
Huh?
How much is the bottom?
The bottom's not heated right now, but that oil is all the way up to here. In there. He's good where he's at right there.
So,
All right, so let's see where we're at temperature. We're at 111 to between 109 and 113.
so Dad,
Yep.
you use the bottom one for like swords or big knives like this.
Correct.
Okay, so they can't fit in the top one.
No, they can't fit in the top one. And I used to use a post leg, not post leg, a post driver, and it wasn't big enough for some of the stuff that I was doing. For some of the bigger, cleavers and things like that, or like the two-handed chopper that I did. It wasn't big enough for a lot of those things. So I've had these cans for a while. I went ahead and filled them with the right oils. Okay. So I'm good with the temperature that we're at right now.
Toby.
I'll go ahead and heat it up the last little bit right before we quench.
Wait, now. Come this way.
You're making him say it.
Come on.
Okay.
Walk inside.
I'm going to go ahead and light the forge again, and we're going to quench this blade. The blade will finish cooling whenever we actually go through, and when the forge gets fully up to temp again, the blade should be exactly where it needs to be. Does it map gas burn hotter? It does burn hotter, and I have used map gas in the past for whenever I was trying to use the torch as a burner in a forge. My first forge that I did, where I turned an ammo can into a forge, I was using a map gas torch to actually work as the burner for that, and that worked great. But for heating purposes and lighting the forge and lighting the fire in the fireplace, stuff like that, I don't need a map gas for that. Just use this. It's not necessary to spend the money on the map gas tanks. These are cheaper, and it does what I needed to do for a torch. It's not necessary to have the map gas torches. So we're going to get that forge brought back up to temp. What we're aiming for on this steel before we quench is right at about 1500 degrees. And when it boils down to it, even though I'm putting this torch on the handle, I'm not going to have to move it again, but my hands are so desensitized to heat right now that if that handle is 120 degrees, I would still be able to pick it up. I'm at a point right now to where if I'm trying to check the temperature of my kids, like if they're running hot, I can't tell if they're running hot. They just feel like normal temperatures. Yeah, I mean, that's holding that right now. That's after the torch was on it. Okay. Let's make sure we're still good. Straightness wise. This is one of the reasons why I like my particular forge setup. So with this forge, the burners blow in from the side. They go in from the side instead of the top down. So those burners come in, they hit the top of the wall on this side, and they create a little vortex inside there, which is really nice. What ends up happening is it creates a vortex and it doesn't let the flame directly blow onto my steel. So what I do is I put the steel on, if this is the forge opening, if the burner's blowing in right here and it's hitting the top wall, working its way down, coming back around and working around, I put the steel below the burner. So I put the steel over in this corner. So it's just rotating itself around, getting that corner nice and warm, but it's got a real even heat all the way down that side. And that's what I do. I don't have any burner blowing directly on the steel. I can toss it in there, not really have to worry about it. Bring it up to a nice even temperature, quench it. And I'll tell you this, if you're going to be quenching by eye, you need to make sure that every single time you quench, you have the same exact type of lighting. You don't want to have one of your lights off or have a light going out or something like that. If you're going to quench by looking at the color of the steel, for one, it takes a while to get used to that, what that temperature is. But if you're going to be paying attention to that, you need to have the same exact lighting set up every single time you quench. So there's no guessing or guesstimation to it. And I've quenched hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of blades. So I'm very confident in my eyeball temperatures. Still want an oven though. Because then it takes all the guessing out of it. Well, that's one of the reasons why I work with primarily 10 series steel, 80 CRV2, 5160, 26C3, 15N20. Those particular types of steels are really easy to quench in simple oils and using a forge. They're very forgiving steels. But still, you want to go through the process of heating your oil. You want to go through the process of using the right oils for what you're going to be doing. Parts 50, AAA, whatever you're going to do. Use the right type of oil, right type of quenching. Do not use motor oil. So yeah. Yeah, isn't it funny that an oven is like on the same level of purchase as a car? Those things are pricey, man. You want to get a nice even heat throughout your blade. I always put it to where the spine is the closest part to where the hottest area is as the burner is blowing on it, or the rotation of the forge and all that stuff, so that it can get heat into it before the cutting edge, because the cutting edge light gets hot faster, the cutting edge and the tip. So I want the spine to start getting the temperature and work its way through. Your motor oil makes perfectly fine. Nice, thank you very much. Just buy peanut oil. It's not expensive. You can buy a gallon of it for like $15 and you'll be fine. Of course, if your motor oil works, who am I to tell you not to do it? Who am I to tell you? If you trust your motor oil, I'm not going to tell you not to do your process. I'm not going to tell you that. If that's your process and it has been successful for you, you do you. I'm not going to be the one to tell you not to do that. I just know that peanut oil, you can get it at Walmart in a gallon, and once you heat it up to 120 degrees, it works super well for a lot of the simple stills that we work with. But, you know, to be fair, Parks 50 and AAA, for how long they last, really not that expensive. So one of the reasons why we heat the oil, for people who are wondering why we bring it up to 120 degrees, why we heat the oil for this process. The whole point behind that is it changes the viscosity of the oil. So we heat it up because whenever it's colder, when the oil is like 60, 70 degrees, it's thicker. It's a thicker oil. Whenever we heat it up to 120 degrees, it thins the oil. So whenever we quench, it's the right viscosity. It's the right, it has the right amount of aeration that happens. Whenever you go in and you quench it, and the reaction that happens, that's the reason why we heat it up. Let's see here, why does using motor oil sound scary? It's not that bad. Using that 20 weight? I love that. So yeah, we heat the oil up to change the viscosity of the oil so that it quenches at the right time, the right amount of cooling to be able to harden the blade how it needs to harden it. All right. Our blade's looking mighty fine right now. We'll let it cook for just a hair longer, and then we're going to quench. I'm going to get stuff out of the way so that I can just rotate straight over. Because we're going to come out. Boom, 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 boom. The reason why I'm letting this still soak right now within that temp is because the Damascus is 1095 and 15 and 20. So that center core is 1095. You need to let that steel soak for a little bit at the right temperature in order for it to quench the proper way. We're talking about tempering, not quenching. Okay, you're talking about that up there. Eric, you are obligated to say, I cast a fireball as you quench. I will do it. Man, Duck was like, get out of here with that. That's why I have moderators. But yes, center core is 1095 and 15 and 20. So you want to make sure that you do the right process for the main steel that's going to be your cutting edge. So you want to make sure that you have a nice soak time with that steel to make sure that that 1095 does everything it's supposed to do prior to the quench. I can heat treat and quench, no problem. Just don't have a big enough oven. Use your house oven. Use the oven in your kitchen. All you got to do, use that kitchen oven. Call it good. Your wife might not like it. All right. So let's go ahead. Keep this up just a hair more. Get it back up to temp real quick. I cast a fireball. I didn't feel anything cracking or tinging or anything like that, so hopefully everything stayed together how it's supposed to be. Everything's nice and straight. We'll wire this off out here real quick. Didn't finish. I was just outside the forge for just a second. Those people that think I disappeared. Yeah. Everything stayed in place. Nothing blew apart, nothing. There we go. Everything's still together, nice and tight. We're still nice and straight. I could not be happier with that. That's what I'm talking about. That is our nice quenched blade. I cannot be happier. Holy cow. That's what we are going for on that. Okay. So let's go ahead. I think I've said okay like 45 times this live stream. Still haven't caught that. I'm not going to close this all the way. I'm just going to close it a little bit because if not, moths and things go in there to die. Y'all see me do this in videos quite a bit. So we're going to put it in the vise. Turn the forge off so we're not wasting propane. I'll take a decarb layer off. There's not a decarb layer. So that's good. That's a good thing. Sometimes we have a decarb layer. But there ain't nothing happening to that. That's not catching a file at all. So that's good. That means we're definitely harder than the file. All right, so that's good. Let's go ahead and check it with some hardness files. Good old eBay special. Cut it off with a porta bandsaw. That's true. But, well, I didn't really cut this section that's right here. The main flat part of the cutting edge, that wasn't cut off with the file. Or with the porta bandsaw. It was just the tip. Just the tip. For the point section. The section that was back here was the area, I had ground it and got rid of some of the excess part of it, and then I forged the heel section down a little bit and changed the angle of the heel going into the tang. So the heel and all of this was all still brought back into the forge and hammered on and moved around a little bit. So 65 HRC file. Yeah. That's a 65 HRC. Grain cycles before cutting out the profile. Yes, I did. I did do grain refinement cycles prior to, doing the stuff that we did tonight. And part of the reason behind that was I knew that I wanted to quench during this live stream, and the difference between tempering cycles and grain refinement cycles is I can kind of do them spaced out a little bit, but I was able to do those, get them all cycled through and all that, and then do that last grain refining cycle, and then do the quenching all on the live stream. That's my goal. Whenever I do grain refinement, I typically do 3. You can do 2. You can do a 1600, let it cool outside the forge, and then do a sub 1400, so 1375, 1350 to 1400 grain refinement cycle and call it good. But I always do a 1500 as well. So I do a 16, a 15, and then a sub 14. So 1350, 1375 to max 1400. And that's my last grain refinement cycle. And then I bring it up to temp, let it soak. Even if it's 80 CRV2, I'll let it soak for about a minute. With this being 1095, I want to make sure that it's soaked for about 4 minutes. It's 4 to 5 minutes because 1095 needs to be that way. But hardness file, 65 HRC. We were skating like a son of a gun. So that is what we were going for. Y'all were able to see me grind that during this process, able to see me do the quench during this process, throw a fireball in this process. The next step in this, whenever I can find my tongs, is to go through and put this in the oven. Now, whenever I put it in the oven, I am going to clamp it to a piece of steel just to make sure that we don't end up warping at all in the tempering process. But you can see how straight we stayed with that. Everything's nice and even. This again is that GoMai. You can see the outer layer, which is the 1084. This layer that's in the center, that's your 15 and 20. And then the layer that's on the edge is your ladder Damascus. And whenever I go through and I grind this back the rest of the way, it's going to fully expose that center core because I can see it all the way down the cutting edge. So as soon as I bring this down to that 0 edge, it's going to expose that full ladder pattern. And then we're going to have a nice little 15 and 20 strip and a nice 1084 strip. Justin, it was awesome having you here. And I cannot wait until next year. I'm so pumped for next Dragon Forge season. Dude, October cannot get here fast enough. It can't. I'm so ready to get back over there and start forging with y'all again. That was an experience that I'll never forget. Like I said, I'm going to take it, clamp it to a piece of angle iron that I have. This piece of angle iron has been tempered a lot. This has probably been tempered like, I don't know, a few hundred times at this point. Can you forge a knife for me? I typically do that on these. This was actually a little bit of a different live stream. Typically, we do forge knives during these, but I got talked into forging this piece of GoMai on the last live stream, and then I wanted to go ahead and do the rest of the process with it, do the grinding and all that, so people could see the layers whenever it's all done. So that's what we worked on in this particular live stream. Go on with a couple of little C clamps onto this piece of steel. I'm gonna get it clamped on here, and then I'm gonna show y'all. It's cooled down enough so that I can actually hold this. So we're going to go on here. Nice and easy. Little piece of angle iron. And what this does is it just makes sure that during the tempering process that no warps happen or anything like that during it. It lets you make sure that everything stays nice and straight with that piece of angle iron. Just like that as it goes into the oven. So the next step for that knife is going into the oven and doing its tempering process. Let's see here. Be able to come down and visit in October. I think that would be awesome if you would. Been 2 weeks in Arizona, but it won't be the same. I'm thinking about going up to Michigan for a little while and trying to work up there at the Bavarian blacksmith experience with them. That'd be cool. It'd be really cool to do videos there and do all of that and have access to the presses all the time. So that would be really cool. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how this year goes with, 2025, with everything that I can try and accomplish during it, with the channel, with live streams, with traveling, all of that. We're going to see how that goes. The fill-in, we could make some diabolical stuff, set our minds to it. Absolutely. Number 3 knife, a budget of 900. Can it be done? Yeah, you can easily make the knife from Rambo 3. New knife maker here. Really enjoy your videos and has helped me tremendously. Kevin, I'm happy that it has. That's been the goal for this channel this whole entire time. And switching it up a little bit and doing the live streams like we're doing has been, a blessing. With your hip bone, hell, if you want your hip bone in there, all you gotta do is send it to me. Send me that hip bone, and I'll go ahead and put that in the knife there. I have done bone on handles, and I actually, whenever we were at the Dragon Forge experience, I had somebody, whenever we were forging one of the blades, so on those knives that we do, let me find one of the railroad spikes. This is a really cool story. It has someone's ashes getting put on the knife. So hang on a second if you want to hear the human ashes on a knife story. Here we go. So these people, they brought their mom's ashes in a little vial. Okay, so they had their mom's ashes in a vial. And whenever we got done forging, so we do these little twists, we do railroad spike knives a lot there, do like runes on the ends of the pommels, things like that. But we forged out the knife, forged out the full blade, things like that. And we ended up heating up the steel. We quenched it. I heated up the steel a little bit again. And we sprinkled their mom's ashes on the handle area, and for the most part burnt them / melt them into the scale on the handle there. We should definitely continue the live stream for both temper cycles. just literally to do the live stream with y'all staring at my oven. So my phone's at like 10% battery, so definitely can't do that. Well, no, I could plug it in if we were inside doing that. So when it comes down to it, that was really cool. They actually sprinkled on all 3 of the knives that they forged, the spike knives that they did. They sprinkled their mom's ashes on the hot steel, and I thought that was definitely unique. I had to make sure I didn't breathe any of that stuff in, because they're just sitting there shika like it was a salt shaker, just sprinkling them ashes on the steel. So that was an interesting experience. I had that. Then I got to teach. What's his name? Dan Crenshaw, Senator Dan Crenshaw. I got to teach him how to forge a sword. So that was really cool. It was interesting with somebody who has a limited depth perception because he's only got one eye. He's the senator that wears the eye patch, and from Texas. And he came down, and I got to forge a sword with him and show him how to do that. And it was a fun experience. But I had a lot of those little random experiences like that down at the Dragon Forge. And I've got a video that's coming out. It's kind of like a recap video from the Dragon Forge experience, talking about my experience with it, my key takeaways, what I loved about it, some B-roll for some of the dragons and videos that I captured and stuff like that. So it's going to be a cool little video with some nice little shots of the dragons and everything. I think that's going to be a blast. Can you use black Damascus steel on this knife? I can do Damascus. I've got Damascus lined up for several different knives. I've got different big blocks of it. This right here, I've got a chunk of crushed W's right there. Big old block of that. And then I've got a big random pattern. That's a 120 layer. It's the same chunk that I used to do this right here. I've got somebody sending me a piece of bone to finish this. This just has a temporary etch on it, but it's the same as that right there. You'd be surprised. You might think that those chunks of steel wouldn't forge out to a 17-inch knife, but yeah, big old chunks of steel like that, be plenty. Yes, please send that. So Duck actually posted the email. There you go, right there. The www.theriversexperience.com. That's the website. It's easy though. It's just the Rivers Experience at yahoo.com. If you want to send the email, or you can actually just put them in the Slack group chat. and I can download them from there. If you just, because it doesn't matter the size of the clip on the Slack channel. So if you want, you can just like message me in Slack, just do a direct message to me, and I can download them straight from there, and the higher quality too, as opposed to if you email it, it might downgrade the quality. But yeah, I'm working on that, and then I've got a video that's going to be coming out with me making the 6 forged knives that I did for the EDCs that are going to go up on the website. As soon as I finish these, I've got the video of me forging these and keeping them all nice and uniform shapes. So this is a run of EDCs that are going to be going out on the website. These all have distal tapers, everything like that. It's just a good, nice size EDC right there, all forged. It's going to have, these are 26C3, so these are going to have a brute de forge section up here, so the ricasso and going up through the spine is going to be brute de forge, and they're all going to have hamons. So 26C3 creates, it gets a crisp, and I'm talking about crisp hamon on it. So all 6 of these are going to be distal tapered, nice handle material, brute de forge with the hamon, the whole shebang. And 26C3 is a razor steel. It's a steel that people use to make razors and stuff like that with. It's a really nice steel for chef's knives and things like that. But those, whenever I'm done quenching those, after tempering, those sets of EDCs are going to have like a 62 to 64 HRC on the edge. So it's going to be a nice quality, good edge retention EDC. You know, having something that's 62 to 64 HRC is epic for a EDC. Right about gently down the stream. Slash feet double tap your screen. That's what I'm talking about. All right, Jeff. It was awesome having you here. Guys and gals, I think I'm going to call it right here. I think I'm going to go ahead, go inside, and get some food. I am absolutely starving. I'm ready to eat. All I've had today was a salad with some chicken in it. So what we'll do on next week's live stream, we will go through and I'll talk with people in the Discord channel. So Duck Rabbit and a bunch of other people are on the Discord. If you're not part of it, you should definitely think about joining it. It's I've got it linked. If you go to my About Me part of my channel, you can actually go through. I don't know what my daughter's saying over there. Anyways, you can go to the Discord and be a part of that if you want to, and we can talk about all that stuff in the Discord. Go from there. I'm off as well. Good night, brother. See you later, Sean. And I don't know if my daughter's telling me to not end it or to end it. Don't end it? I don't know what she's saying. Anyways, so go on there and join the Discord. Make sure that we have a lot of the people from the group in there, and we talk about all kinds of different stuff about knife making, what's going on. There's several different channels that you can actually talk to in there, and it's pretty cool. It's she didn't make the food. I'm gonna starve. That's all there is to it. Anyways, it's not a big deal, guys. I just want to thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for participating in the chat and all that stuff. We're definitely gonna go get this bad boy into the oven and get it tempering. One of the things that y'all want to make sure y'all do, that if y'all go through and y'all heat treat your blade, once you've done and made sure, done the file test, made sure everything was good, you want to get it into the oven relatively soon. You don't want to wait and have it sit overnight before you put it in the oven to temper it. You want to get it in the oven, let it start tempering within, the hour. You don't want it to be waiting for a bunch of time, 10, 12, 15, 20 hours or something like that, sitting on your workbench. You want to make sure that you get that bad boy tempering, going good. This is going to be absolutely epic. I like how you can really start seeing the layers of the ladder pattern inside there. And like I said, as I grind that up, it's going to look really cool. What I'll try and do is I'll try and get this ground the rest of the way, get it etched so that y'all can actually see it. I'll do a post in the Discord. I'll do a post in the Discord. I'll do a post in the on the YouTube channel, and then like everywhere else. But yes, thank you, Duck. I will quit yapping. I'm gonna go get me some food. Y'all have an amazing night. I will see y'all possibly on Tuesday. If not, I'll see you on Thursday or Saturday. Definitely not Thursday. Tuesday or Saturday. Guys, see y'all.